Good. Okay. Thank you so much, Terry. And next, I'd like to ask Gary Heseltine to please come back to the stage. After a brief setup, you didn't see that, of course. Gary is a police officer and a UK-based UFO researcher. I think you're going to find his information incredibly interesting. Gary?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will be making a brief press release. Okay. I'm going to cover two areas. As has just been introduced, I am a serving police detective with almost 21 years service, and I work in the UK. However, after a childhood sighting, I have had a lifetime interest in this subject, which resulted in 2002, where I actively felt compelled to become involved in some kind of active research. I'm a police officer, so the thing that I can write about is police officers. Before I just introduce some figures with regards to my work, my brief press release will relate to two areas of UFO investigation. A police database, where I encourage police officers, both serving and retired, to come forward with their UFO accounts. And secondly, I will offer some input, as was already alluded to by Linda Moulton-Howe and John Burroughs, about my investigation or re-investigation and my collaborative work with Charles Holt, who was at that time the Deputy Base Commander of a nuclear facility at RAF Bentwaters. Okay, police officers. In 2002, I set up a database. I am here in an unofficial capacity, and the views that I state do not represent my police force. I am here as a UFO researcher in a private capacity. In 2002, I launched an unofficial national police database called the PRUFORS Police Database, PRUFORS being the acronym for Police Reporting UFO Sightings, and it caters for serving and retired British police officers only. In 2002, when I started, I had 6 cases involving 12 officers. After 8 years of my research, I now have 357 cases going back to 1901 involving 800 British police officers. It is the tip of an iceberg. That's all I'm going to say about my work with police officers. I will now turn my attention to Rendlesham Forest. Rendlesham Forest, I had the good fortune that in December 2007, I was able to meet with Colonel Charles Holt, retired US Air Force. At the time in 1980, he was the Deputy Base Commander of what we know is a nuclear facility. And I know that personally because between 1983 and 1989, I served in the Royal Air Force as a police officer, and for 3 of my 6 years, I worked on 2 nuclear facilities, doing exactly the same kind of work that the airmen involved in this case did. So I have a kind of a unique perspective. And when I met Holt, I said there must be many more witnesses. And as John Burroughs, Linda Moulton-Howe, and Holt himself has alluded to, there are many, many more witnesses in the wings. And if there was ever a green light given for people to come forward at no risk to their careers, etc., people would come forward. But what we already know, when I look at this case and with my work with Holt, is that this is an incident where multiple UFOs on at least 2 corroborated nights, possibly 3, but at least I work in the basis of evidence. I am a police officer, a detective, and I know what evidence is. And in a court of law, this would stand up. There is really good testimony to say that multiple UFOs on at least 2 nights were outside this base, and on at least 1 night, UFO beams, and as told to me by Colonel Holt, shone beams down directly into the weapons storage area, which I know to be a nuclear facility. That has to be of tremendous defence significance, not only to the UK where it took place, but has to be of world significance in terms of the US and the connection between UFOs and a definite link to nuclear facilities, and there are many, many cases around the world that do that. I want to close really by giving you the actual wording of what Holt said that Linda Moulton Howe alluded to. Okay, so I'm going to read it quote for quote and then just give you a brief conclusion about the subject as a whole from my perspective as a detective looking at what I consider the best evidence. Okay, so I'm now going to read this statement that went out on June the 25th, 2009. And I had pushed Holt, because I'm writing a film script with him to try to get this out to a much wider audience, to bring this to the world. And I said, we will need a definitive press statement from you. 29 years on, when this was written, will you give it to me? And he said yes. And this is what he said. I wish to make it perfectly clear that the UFOs I saw were structured machines moving under intelligent control and operating beyond the realm of anything I have ever seen before or since. I believe the objects that I saw at close quarter were extraterrestrial in origin, and that the security services of both the United States and England were and have been complicit in trying to subvert the significance of what occurred at Rendlesham by use of well-practiced methods of disinformation. And I will add a second paragraph that's on there that's not referred to much. But this is what he also said. I believe Gary's script, which he has endorsed, he has given me signed authority that this is his take on what's occurred. He endorses this. High-ranking officer. He said, I believe Gary's script will lift a veil of secrecy about what really happened at Rendlesham. Events that were and still are of tremendous defence significance to the United Kingdom and indeed the rest of the world. When I look at this case, among many others in the high calibre witness categories of pilots, military, commercial, astronauts, cosmonauts, senior military figures, many senior military officers, specialists, scientists, radar operators, sonar operators. The evidence is overwhelming that there is an extraterrestrial presence visiting the Earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gary. And I'd like to ask that you stay up here and invite the speakers who've already spoken to return to the stage.